Okay, we are back. Sport and Spinal Weekly. Remember, you can email the show, sportandspinalweekly at paulbunyan.net. You can get information with each show and actually listen to previous shows online.
Yeah, you find those. There's a link to those shows on our clinic website, sportandspinalrehab.com.
And you guys have like email where if people just have general questions, they can just contact you that way too?
Sure. Yeah. Email. You can email our office at cssr@paulbunyan.net. Otherwise, there's a link right on the website that you can ask questions as well.
And they have real people answering phones and stuff, so you can just talk to a person if that's what you prefer.
Absolutely.
And some people like that in today's world.
It's a good thing. We have a great staff and very knowledgeable about things. So,
and regardless if it's maybe you already are a patient, then whether the billing or whatever, they can call and get their questions answered that way as well. Today we're talking about athletes, and I thought that was interesting that you brought it up, and it's just around the corner. Fall sports will have their summer camps, and when I'll tell you that they have. They're training throughout the summer as well. But to be official, they'll have to have their physical coming up, right?
Yeah, I think it's every 2 or 3 years. High school athletes need to have their preseason physical done. And so that's one of the services that we provide at our clinic. And we've got 3 docs that can do those physicals. So it's really convenient. It's fast and easy. They're in and out. And we work with a lot of athletes in general, just in our practice. And so we're pretty knowledgeable. We're real knowledgeable about what things to look for.
Sport and spinal rehab. So you guys do see a lot of that. Not that anybody else wouldn't, but I mean, you also, I would assume, know the areas to look at where a youth maybe tend to get injury or are prone to because of, I don't know, maybe you know more about that, but sure, it helps because you see these athletes throughout the year, not just every couple of years during August.
Yeah, I'll give you a real good example of, let's say someone comes in and they're a track or a cross-country athlete, so they're going to be running long distances. We'll examine their whole spine, but then we'll also look at their lower extremities as well as part of our the regular physical, and so we may notice that maybe their feet go flat, or what we call foot pronation.
Oh, okay.
And so if we link that together, we may ask them, well, do you ever have knee pain when you run, or do you ever get shin splints or hip pain? And they'll maybe say, or the parents will say, well, yeah, they complain of that. So we can identify then, they might not have put 2 and 2 together, but the cause of that knee pain or the shin splints or the hip pain might be coming from their feet. And so if we can identify that, maybe get them into a different shoe or recommend an orthotic, an arch support system in their shoe, then we can maybe prevent some injuries from happening so that they can go through their season. Plus enhance performance, which is, I think, what all athletes are looking to do.
Right. That was going to be kind of my question. Have you guys ever seen a patient, or they come to you and whatever sport they're in, and it's hurting, and then discover that they're performing improperly with their body, and it's more of how they're doing. I don't know, maybe a pitcher in baseball or a football player or something like that. Is there anything like that that's ever happened?
Yeah, absolutely. We see that all the time with athletes, and I guess we don't promote that we can enhance performance, but through chiropractic, we certainly see that. A couple of great examples are a couple of athletes at BSU that we've worked at with at the college level, runners, and after getting adjusted, they'll have their meet the next day and turn in their best times ever, and that's happened multiple times. And certainly we haven't done any scientific studies or anything of that nature to link the two together. And they've been training and stuff. They've been training, but they report back, how did the meet go? It was awesome. I felt great. I felt like my body was functioning at its top capacity, and that obviously leads itself to better performance.
Well, yeah, and that's how we're supposed to be running anyway, right? Or our bodies in general, and even if we're an athlete.
Yeah, and we're all athletes in some regard. If you look at the big picture,
sure.
You might be a work athlete, or whatever your job is, a work warrior.
A stay-at-home mom is.
Yeah, I mean they're doing their. Everybody's an athlete in their own way, and so to have your body function at peak capacity, I think, is important, and chiropractic is certainly part of that equation.
And I suppose sometimes it's quick to think, well, I'm glad you brought up running and stuff, but tackle football, soccer, some of these fall sports that they have can be, I don't know, I guess you could say violent or very physical.
Yeah.
Concussions are a big thing amongst everybody now, and I know that the school districts and everybody have really gone to an extra step to try and make sure that doesn't happen. But all athletes need to have their body and their skeletal structure, I suppose, and as you say, because they're running, they're being hit, so with muscle on top of good movement, right, of their bones.
Yeah, and the key with chiropractic is, the maximum integrity of our neuromusculoskeletal system. And what I mean by that is the nervous system and the muscles and the joints all working in coordination. And so that if everything's firing good at the same time, you number one, you perform better. Number two, you're going to help prevent injuries with that happening. You bring up a couple of, you talk about different sports like football. Football is, I think every NFL team has a chiropractor working on staff or multiple chiropractors that work.
I would imagine, yeah.
There's
50 guys.
Some of the greatest football players of all time are huge chiropractic advocates. Emmitt Smith and Jerry Rice are a couple that come to mind.
Okay.
I mean, they basically say their career wouldn't be what it was without chiropractic, and they wouldn't have the ability to get on the field all the time.
Or maybe walk around today.
Yeah, you bring up concussions, and up in this neck of the woods, everybody knows of Sid Crosby. Obviously the hockey player, and one of the main treating doctors for him was a chiropractor that helped him recover from his concussion.
Really?
And so implementing some adjustments to the neck and upper part of the body, along with other types of visual things. He had a pretty complex case, obviously, but if you think about a concussion, and obviously it involves hitting the head, it's pretty hard to hit your head and not injure your neck, if you think about it. So what we see in a lot of concussion athletes is that they will have a true concussion, which is basically an injury to the brain itself, but then they'll have injuries to their upper neck as well, and their lower neck, or even their upper part of the shoulder blade region along with that, because in many cases they suffer kind of a whiplash through that concussion.
I assume that pretty much all concussions, unless someone lands on your head, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's like a concussion because you're getting pushed on the boards or whatever, getting hit by a linebacker.
So it would make sense that you'd have some injuries to your neck, and what we see, it really speeds up the progression of healing with concussions and getting over those headache symptoms. If the irritation to the nerves in the neck and the joints are moving well in the upper part of the neck or the cervical spine. So adjusting patients with concussions really helps speed up the healing process.
I can imagine for some sports, having an adjustment would just feel better, period. Being a football player, a running back, like an Emmitt Smith.
Yeah.
That could be...
Well, pre-game, and these guys, we get adjust during the game and after the game. And I've had I've had the privilege of working with some hockey teams. I work with the Beavers here in town, and all the sports here. And then I've worked with my daughter played for the Gopher women's hockey team, so I had the privilege of working with those girls, and they're high performance athletes, and they line up before the games for an adjustment because they just know they're not hurting. It's just a wellness thing, and it helps them perform better and prevents injury. So it's pretty cool to see when you witness it, and I think a lot of people don't realize that we do that type of thing.
Well, we're hopefully starting to train folks that chiropractic is a whole lot more than an adjustment, right?
Yeah, it's more than just getting your back cracked. I think
Right.
it's a form of healthcare, really.
Well, for me, it was the chiropractic industry that really introduced wellness to our area, in my opinion. You guys were talking about long before any doctor was down. Now, I'm sure there's some out there saying, I've been saying eat healthy and blah, blah, blah. But honestly, making programs, actually challenging people to their wellness, right?
Well, it's been, it's a natural form of healthcare. So it's more the medical or the allopathic community now is moving towards that because, which is awesome. That's great. And so, getting away from all the drugs and surgery if you don't need it, and living doing more wellness oriented things and taking supplements and all the natural types of things that we can do to be healthy without inundating ourselves with drugs all the time.
I know we were talking about athletes, chiropractic youth, but you bring up a diet or a lifestyle that. Have you heard the what is it, paleo diet?
Mm-hmm. I've heard of it. Mm-hmm.
Where it's like the caveman back in the day. That's your diet.
Mm-hmm.
There's also the like an exercise
mm-hmm.
that you're running and I can't. The more I think about it, of course that would be good, right?
Well, I think that the key to that, I'm not an expert on that diet, but I think one of the keys to that diet is it really it encourages cutting out the simple sugars or the non-complex carbohydrates, and because that just turns to sugar in our body and then turns to fat, and it doesn't have much energy source to it at all.
Best thing about it is that, it's all the food's on the planet, it's at your grocery store, and you don't have to buy a box of food or any program.
Mm-hmm.
It's just pretty much what we did way back.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that the exercise is like they will mimic being chased by dinosaurs, and they'll chase up.
Interesting stuff.
But a way to look at it. So I thought I'd get your take on that, Doc. Yeah. But yeah, online at the website you can get more. You can book. Set up physicals, correct, for the season?
The best way to do that is just call our office and let our staff know that you want to get your son or your daughter in for a physical, and we'll do a good job taking care of them and make sure that they're ready to perform whatever sport they're going to perform. And
it's everything about the same, like Red Lake, their sports program mm-hmm. compared to Bemidji School District or even somebody else's school district. The physical's pretty much general for everybody.
It's the same. There's a form actually online at the Minnesota State High School League website that you can actually download off that website and bring in with you, filled out. It'll save you some time. Otherwise, we have the form there available.
Sure.
But it's a state law that that you have to get those physicals done.
Do any athletes, even at the youth level, do they just get one every year just to be on the safe side? I know that would be an extra expense to mom and dad, but
yeah, not typically. I mean, they usually for this particular we have folks who come in, more than once a year just to get checked and make sure they're doing well, but not specifically go through the steps of the actual physical. We do that like I said, I think it's either every 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How come when we were going, it was every year?
I'm not sure. That's a good question.
Didn't you have to have one every year?
Thinking back, I think we did. Yeah.
Well, if you have any questions about it, the staff at Chiropractic Sport and Spinal Rehab, they can have the answers for you.
Absolutely.
Doc, thanks for coming in today, but we'll be right back and we'll close out today's show.
All right.
All right, Sport and Spinal Weekly, we are back. And as we said in the opening, Sherry with Choice Therapy is with us today. And, of course, Jason's been in. Who else has been with Choice Therapy?
Joe,
that's right. Just a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
And so we're getting to meet you all there at Choice Therapy.
We hope to have everybody circle through here and
give
their viewpoints of what they do best.
Right, and you guys, we can hear about all your new location.
Yes.
I suppose you're just as excited as everybody, huh?
It's very nice, and we have room now for... We were kind of climbing over everybody before, so now we have lots of room, and it's nice. Nice
to have extra room.
Yep.
Today we're going to talk about headaches, and that includes that's a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. There's 3 primary kinds of headaches. It's the migraine, the cluster, and the tension headaches, and I did pull up some research here,
mm-hmm.
just preparing for this talk. 90% of people will suffer from some type of headache over the next year. About 1% of these have some serious underlying problems, so it's always good for people to be checked out by a physician, make sure that there's nothing sinister brewing.
Mm-hmm.
Primary headaches account for more than 90% of all headache complaints, and and primary headaches mean that it's coming from either the head, the neck, or the thoracic spine.
The thoracic spine. What is the whole spine?
No, that's basically from the neck to the upper low back. I don't know how
Okay.
to explain it, but right where the ribs end, that's the thoracic spine.
Okay.
Okay.
So we can picture that. And I'm thinking everybody has a headache.
And they do, and many people don't need treatments. Everybody gets that little headache every once in a while where you just need to lay down, maybe take some ibuprofen or aspirin or Tylenol or whatever.
Or we haven't been drinking enough, right?
Or
Drink
that's
water.
right. That's right. Being dehydrated is a major cause of some of the headaches. Another thing that people don't think about is the aspartame in the diet soft drinks is a major contributor to headaches.
Really?
It's some nasty stuff out there.
You hear that a lot. But I suppose a lot of people just associate a headache with an injury or self-indulgence.
I can't do anything about the self-indulgence
Right.
stuff,
But then you talk about that sometimes your headache is telling your body something and telling you something. Right?
That's right. So getting back to headaches are some of the things that I really enjoy working with. They're probably my favorite diagnosis.
Really?
Yeah. It's because people who come to me for their headaches are usually kind of at their wits' ends, and it's
Okay.
kind of almost like a last-ditch effort. And I look at the thoracic spine, the neck, and the head, and try and figure out what is causing it. And when I talk about the head, there's actually sutures in the head that allow the head to expand and kind of contract
Okay.
in kind of a rhythmic type motion. And this has to do with our production of cerebral spinal fluid in the fourth ventricle, which is kind of some technical stuff. But anyway.
But you worry about that, right?
Right. I worry about that. And if, way back when I graduated, which is
Just a few years ago.
years ago, let's just put it that way, I was taught that the sutures fused by age 8, the sutures were fused, and research has proven over and over again that this is not true, that the sutures are designed the way they are so that they can move. And anyway, so when I'm looking at somebody's head, I'm actually feeling for restrictions in
Okay.
that movement, and there's a way that you can feel what is going on. What I've found with working with people over the last many years is by the time they get to me, most of the people have they usually have at least 2 of the restrictions, maybe even 3, meaning they have issues in their head as well as their neck, or their head and their thoracic spine. Rarely do I see somebody who's having these chronic headaches that don't have some kind of cranial issues going on.
Okay. Well, now, but a migraine, is that different than a headache?
Migraines have many different causes, but one of the contributing factors could be the restrictions of these sutures in the head or the thoracic spine. I have a couple people who came to me with migraines, and I found out that most of their issue was more in their thoracic spine. I showed them how to do some stretches, and now as soon as they feel that headache start, they lay down, do their stretches, and they're able to avoid a migraine.
You're kidding me.
No, it's some really cool stuff.
So
Really cool stuff.
So then that's why doctors and yourselves, say get out there and be active and
Yeah.
exercise.
Yeah.
Not saying get in a rugby match.
No.
But walk around, right?
Right. Walking is like the best exercise you can do. But if you're having headaches, it's kind of hard to get out and do some of those kinds
So
of
if you're given the opportunity to narrow something down, you have some solutions or some options that
Yeah.
a patient could apply, and that doesn't cost them anything to do these stretches, right?
Oh, no. And I really work on trying to get the patients to do as much that they can do themselves at home as opposed to coming in and seeing me.
So, but then sometimes there's headaches, and it's actually because, well, I know after talking to like Dr. Erickson, if your spine isn't in line and you're not
Right.
moving properly,
Right.
you can get a headache
You
from
can
that.
get a headache from that, yep. And I do look at the facet joints and try a few techniques, and if I can't get them where they need to be, then I have no problem referring them to a chiropractor to mobilize that joint, because in my schooling I maybe have 2 or 3 ways of mobilizing a joint, and they probably have 18. So
Oh, perfect.
So we work pretty much hand in hand with the chiropractors, and
Yeah, that's just a team of people working on folks. That's it. Only can come up with solutions. I'm thinking, or find out what the problem is.
Right, right. And I mean, and sometimes the answer to migraines is to make sure that they're taking their preventative medication. I mean, I'm not saying that medications are all terrible or anything. I
suppose
like
some people, a certain percentage, they got to have medication.
Yeah, some of them do. You know, I mean, but there are some people that can get off of some of their meds once they get some of these things resolved. You know, the cranial sutures can become immobile. You know, most of the time it's through a major trauma like a car accident or a fall or something like that.
Okay.
Sometimes it's more of the, you know, hitting your head hard under a cabinet and you might not even remember doing it.
Oh,
you know, or whatever. You don't get into the car right and hit your head on the way going into a car. And so that can cause issues. Also, things like doing headers in soccer. That's can be a major contributor to migraines and headaches and all that kind of stuff. And that's a whole nother boat.
It's funny that you brought that up because Dr. Erickson and I just briefly talked about, because we were talking athletes in sport, youth athletes, and their physicals are coming up. Then we briefly talked about concussions, and with all the attention in the past year about it, it seems that the high school league and they're putting a little more attention towards it.
I mean, that's very good that they're doing that, because I think I was taught that there's no such thing as a small head injury. Okay, if somebody loses consciousness or anything like that, that not only has implications now, it has implications later on in life.
Yeah, no, I think we don't think about that right when we're younger.
Right, right. So if a kid has a head injury on the field, you know, that could be affecting.
It's not like spraining your ankle.
No, it's not like spraining your ankle. You can go on years later and have issues because of that.
And you got to be really careful, because you might feel fine right there and then, and something else can happen, and it can. When you talk about your brain and your spine, the only other important one is your heart. You know, those three aren't working good. You're not doing sports. That's for darn sure.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure.
So, Sherry, thanks for coming in. And if people have questions about headaches, migraines, clusters, tension, they can ask to see you?
They can ask to see me. Yep, our telephone number is 444-8280. And if they want, we do have the free 15-minute screens if they just want to come in and talk to me.
Oh.
Sometimes people can, you know, just come in and talk, and I can give them some ideas.
I suppose you've seen enough people, you have an idea of...
You kind of get that feel where you kind of know what's going on. You know, it doesn't take a long time to figure out what's going on. Sometimes it does.
Oh, sure.
I mean, sometimes I have to see people 2-3 times before I really get a good grasp of what's causing their problems.
Are some of them like, why didn't I come see you sooner?
Oh, many of them are. Many of them
so
are.
this is imagining.
Yeah.
So you can find the end of the tunnel to your headache and migraines. Contact Sherry at Choice Therapy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks.